So watch this.
Nikon's D5 is all about speed. It can shoot at 12 frames per second with full autofocus and auto exposure, and up to 14 frames per second with the mirror locked up. Not only does it shoot fast, it writes fast. You can shoot up to 200 RAWs in a burst without a hiccup, and have them all written to an XQD card within just 1 second of the 200th shot.
That's 200 shots. Watch this. Boom. I can check focus on my 200th shots. It's insane.
In this field test, we'll be shooting a range of adventure with the D5 in beautiful locales outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Joining us will be adventure sports photographer and longtime Nikon shooter, Michael Clark. We'll be putting the D5 through its paces to test out its world-class autofocus, fast frame rate, and overall image quality.
My name is Michael Clark. I'm an adventure sports photographer based in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Michael Clark specializes in adventure sports, travel, and landscape photography, bringing a unique perspective and passion to his work. He's internationally published and has an impressive list of clients, from Red Bull and Patagonia to Apple, Microsoft, and National Geographic.
Santa Fe is a city based up on this high altitude altiplano between 3 different mountain ranges. It's a small city with some of the best light I've seen anywhere in the world. There's 30 different climbing areas. There's skiing, there's mountain biking, there's BMX, there's whitewater kayaking. There's a whole variety of adventure sports here just outside my door. Well, I got into adventure sports photography to have an adventure. You're right there with the athletes. You're performing the sport as well as shooting it. To create an image that allows the viewer to feel what it's like for the athlete in that situation. You need cameras with really fast autofocus. They need to react quickly. You also need a camera that's tough. You need gear that can survive.
It's not an exaggeration to say the Nikon D5 has the best autofocus system in the world. Geared toward action shooting, the D5 is capable of keeping up with fast-moving subjects, no matter where they move to in the frame. It can do this particularly well because of a new 180,000 pixel RGB metering sensor that sees the scene and understands the subject you initially focused on. This allows it to automatically shift AF points to follow the subject around the frame and keep it focused. And thanks to the dense, wide coverage of the 153 AF points, the D5 can track your subject across a wide area of the frame with incredible accuracy. To put this to the test, we headed to a BMX dirt jumping track just outside of town for some speedy and erratic action.
Nice. So the first day we went out and shot with Daniel Cariz. He's a BMX rider here and a motocross rider actually. We have a bunch of different dirt jump places here in Santa Fe, which is pretty unique.
So what are some of the considerations that go into this?
I don't even pull the cameras out at first. I just watch the cyclist, the rider, depending on what kind of bike they're riding and what tricks they can do and what looks the best just to my eye. Having shot this a bunch, I have a pretty good feeling for what's going to look good.
For this first scenario, the riders rapidly entered the frame after rounding a bend.
Definitely when I'm shooting adventure sports like BMX, I'm thinking about showing depth in the image. I want to put something in the foreground. I want to catch the height of the action coming around. It feels more three-dimensional than just some rider in the sky.
And Daniel's so good, I'm not worried about him hitting me if I'm right here. There's a bunch of footprints here, so I might just be somewhere right in here, get low. Rider up, he's coming in. He's sharp, that's pretty impressive.
So Michael, I see you have some strobes out here. What are you hoping to do with these?
Well, the lighting's pretty flat since it's a cloudy day, so I'm hoping to add some drama. And we're gonna set one up on either side of the rider as they come through. So we call this a light trap, so that they are side lit.
I shoot with strobes a lot because it helps separate my work from the pack. And you really get this almost studio look in the outdoors that really pops, and the colors are much more saturated, brighter. The images seem sharper just because it's a higher contrast lighting setup.
Perfect. And I'll stick this one over here.
Essentially, we're using a slice of the light. So that allows us to shoot up to 8,000th of a second, which is pretty crazy.
We needed the camera to keep the rider in focus so that as soon as he passed the strobes, we could trigger an in-focus shot. To do this, we switched the camera to AF continuous and enabled 3D tracking area mode. In 3D tracking, you pick an initial AF point, place it over your subject, and initiate autofocus.
With any of these action sports where they're catching air or jumping off something, typically a low angle makes them look a little higher in the sky. It may feel like it's cheating the image a little bit, but it actually probably makes it feel more like it did for the rider, 6, 7, 10 feet off the ground doing a trick.
Similar to our last setup, the riders are rapidly entering the frame, but this time, they're riding up the back of a dirt mound and then launching into the air. This meant that we and the AF system had less time to react and acquire focus. To raise the stakes even further and give a unique angle to the photograph, we shot wide open for shallow depth of field, which Michael said he traditionally might not do on a paid shoot because of the risk of a misfocused shot.
You were shooting at f2?
At f2, yeah.
And so the rider's jumping over the hill, you're laying on the ground, you can't see anything before he's fully airborne, and you have a millisecond to snap.
And as soon as I saw them enter the frame, I immediately moved the camera to place that point over them, and like I know I only have one shot, right?
Exactly.
At f2, he's in focus. I mean,
crazy sharp.
Even though the D5 acquired and maintained focus on our subject remarkably well, there were times I couldn't react fast enough to place my point over the subject. Thankfully, the D5 has another trick up its sleeve.
What's amazing about this, a totally new feature on the D5 and D500, you can assign any custom button to any AF mode to instantly override. So for example, I might have the shutter button be 3D tracking, but let's say I don't want the 3D tracking, I just want single point AF continuous. I'll just switch to, I'll put that on AF on, so I can have all these AF modes at my fingertips without ever switching AF mode.
Switching to auto area when I didn't have enough time to specify my subject worked remarkably well. It's essentially like 3D tracking, except that the camera chooses your subject intelligently, prioritizing faces. In the heat of the action, instantly being able to try something else when one way of working fails is invaluable.
We got some pretty cool images. I mean, the lighting worked really well. The autofocus was great. We got some interesting perspectives.
One more time, Daniel, that exact trick. 1, 2, 3. Nice. Oh yeah, we're done.
Satisfied with our results, we called it a night. The next day, we headed out to the Rio Grande to shoot some whitewater kayakers.
It's gonna be wicked cold for the kayakers down there is all I can say. They're suited up in full dry suits with lots of fleece.
And the water is almost near freezing, right?
Pretty much, yeah. It's probably 34, 35 degrees.
I consider whitewater kayaking to be probably one of the toughest things to shoot with autofocus because the kayaker is not moving in a straight line. There's always this whitewater wave splashing in front of them, behind them, water drops all around them.
Because of the splashing water's ability to distract the AF system, we chose the more conservative D25 area mode. In D25, the camera focuses using your chosen AF point, but uses any of the surrounding points to focus if your subject moves away from the initial point. Essentially, the camera gives you some leeway if you can't precisely keep one point exactly over a fast-moving subject. In this situation, we took advantage of the full 12 frames per second burst rate. We were even surprised to find that 3D tracking generally stuck to the erratic kayaker pretty well. This gave us a chance to try out the D5 at 14 frames per second with the mirror locked up.
Man, John gave us some action there.
Here, the camera doesn't use autofocus or auto exposure, and the viewfinder and LCD go dark. So, we pre-composed, pre-focused, sprayed, and prayed.
We were able to get really close to the kayakers in a few instances, where I was holding the camera with a fisheye like inches away from his paddle as he went by, and literally the camera got soaked.
This was also a prime example of the benefits of the D5's weather sealing. For our last scenario of the day, we once again set up the strobes to light our subjects against the water.
I mean, that's the magic right there, is you got him sharp and water flying over it.
While shooting the kayakers was a lot of fun, we still felt like we hadn't stretched the AF system to its limits.
You did it, man.
So the next day, we headed to the motocross track.
It was the first time I've ever shot motocross before, actually.
You push the back end out a little bit to...
We met back up with Daniel, who as an engineer for the city, helps make and maintain motocross tracks and jumps at this park just outside of Santa Fe. But before we got started with the action shooting, we took some portraits of Daniel. We used the Nikon 85mm f1.4 lens, a focal length and aperture combo known to be troublesome when it comes to accurate focus, because of the inherently shallow depth of field. Nikon has now addressed this issue head-on, offering automated AF fine-tune to calibrate any lens to the D5. With some sharp portraits of Daniel in the bag, we put him back in action.
And he was great. He was launching all over the place. He was, kicking up dirt all over.
Well, I guess we found the breaking point of subject tracking because it just picks one spot and then just stays there.
In some situations, Daniel's relative speed was so fast the camera's AF points simply couldn't shift fast enough to keep up. Other times, it worked. With Daniel backlit, the light situation was also challenging.
Pretty bright sky behind us, so we're really pushing the dynamic range of the camera right now, which will be interesting.
So I was finding that enabling active D-lighting helped.
Active D-lighting combines a bit of underexposure with shadow boosting to balance out your image, and it's really quite effective. For very high contrast scenes, you can either enable extra high ADL modes or flat picture control.
Oh, Jesus.
You're a coded man. Don't move. Let me take a picture of that.
Oh, it's in my ear. Oh, glad I don't own this. So 3D tracking works really well here. You wait for them to enter the frame, put my point all the way on the right side, initiate as soon as he's underneath that right AF point, and then let it start tracking and then shoot a burst, and it follows him all the way through.
One thing I saw that was super cool is this thing.
For our last shot, we wanted to go out with a bang, so we had Daniel jumping one of the biggest jumps in the park.
So this setup was a great example of how convenient it is to be able to switch AF modes immediately. I was in 3D tracking, it lost him because he dipped, and then when he reappeared, it didn't quite have him, so I jammed my finger on the joystick, which is assigned to auto area mode, and that immediately just caught him and tracked him through the rest of the shots at 12 FPS.
Wow. Auto did great there, actually. It did not work that time.
Having shot a wide variety of action sports with the Nikon D5 over a few days, we were impressed by the versatility of the camera. There's no silver bullet when it comes to shooting action, but we found a number of useful focus modes that helped us get the shot. The ergonomics are so well tuned that we can adapt quickly if our chosen mode isn't optimal.
Even as Rishi saw, he was shooting wide open at f2 in a lot of instances with a motocross or BMX rider coming by him super fast. I mean, 40, 50 miles an hour. And it was tack sharp. I've never seen a camera able to do that before. If you're gonna create a new, unique look, that's definitely a game changer.
All right, Michael, so that was 3 days of a lot of fun. We tried all sorts of sports. I've never seen any of this stuff before or shot it, so I learned a lot of new things. What were your thoughts overall on the camera?
The camera's phenomenal. I mean, obviously we found out the autofocus is better than pretty much everything I've ever used before. For me, the fast frame rate is really nice. The touchscreen on the back, I have to say, is beautiful. How did you find the D5? Did you like it?
The autofocus system is fantastic. So for the type of stuff we were shooting, you know, I've never even shot this before, but I was still getting some nice shots, which speaks a lot about the camera, I think.
One thing I found, because I was using an older XQD card and you had a brand new
yeah, I had
top-end
a
XQD.
400 megabytes a second write speed XQD card.
Do not order this camera with CompactFlash. Order it with XQD. Yeah. You've got to have that to maximize the speed of this camera.
Shooting with Michael was great, and it was fun to work beside an adventure photographer. Despite having vastly different photographic styles and experience, we each got some great shots. Michael used the camera in ways he hadn't before, pushing the aperture wide open and trusting Nikon's 3D subject tracking system. He realized this would help him, or any pro photographer, differentiate their work. I, on the other hand, never having shot action sports before, came away with shots I was happy with, instantly toggling between different AF modes to adapt to the action. The way the camera served both our shooting styles speaks a lot about the versatility and capability of the D5.
For me, my photography, my life as an adventure athlete is all driven by my passions for these sports. And I hope I convey that passion in my images. So I'm always thinking about ways to just get that edge so that I can do something different that stands out from the crowd like all photographers are. See if I can push the images I'm creating to just a whole other level.
For DP Review, I'm Rishi Sanyal. Thanks for watching.